Okay, let me change tacks now and talk about the effects on job and wealth. Now, I have a limited time to speak, so I'm just going to touch on a couple of issues here, and I'm happy to answer some questions, since much of the work in my books is about these social aspects of the devices. I'm often asked how these advances in artificial intelligence are going to affect jobs. Now, if you think about artificial intelligence as an advance in automation, certainly one of its biggest impacts is going to be on the way in which we work. But are we all going to be out of jobs? You know, and what sort of jobs are going to be at risk? What skills are going to be more valuable in the future? Surprisingly, there's some pretty good answers to just those questions. Now, you might have seen some scary reports that 50% or more of today's jobs are going to go away in the next several decades. That's likely to be correct, but it's actually very misleading. You know, if you go back and you look at what people did 25 or 50 years ago, you might be surprised to find that a very large percentage of those jobs, they no longer exist. And I'm talking about jobs that, at least in the US, employed millions and millions of people. So, for instance, just about every manager used to have someone that would answer their phone or type their memos or schedule their appointments. I wish I had that. Not anymore. Now it's everybody for themselves as far as these things go. Or consider telephone switchboard operators. This existed while I remember seeing them when I was a kid. Now, at its peak in the United States, there were over 1 million people employed doing nothing but asking you what number you wanted and plugging these silly plugs in. I actually did that job for a while. I wasn't paid. I was too young. But I remember thinking, oh, this is really fun. You know, you plug them in. You might be surprised to learn that I looked this up. Today, there's only 10,000 telephone operators left. So this is a great example of a job that disappeared. So the question we might ask is, with the new technology, what kind of jobs are going to go away? Who's going to be out of a job? Well, if your job involves a well-defined set of tasks with a clear and objective goal, then indeed your employment might be at risk. And that's because these are the kind of tasks that tomorrow's AI-based machines are going to be good at. Now, they come in certain categories. They tend to be what I'll call transactional in nature. So you have a well-defined goal, and there's a well-defined way to get that done. Now, that's as opposed to what I might call social jobs. And there are a lot of social jobs, such as drafting the kind of jobs that are going to go away. I'll get to the ones that are going to start in a second on the next slide. Transactional jobs, or drafting a contract, is actually a transactional job. Examining immigration documents. And when I go back to the US, I actually don't interact with anybody at all when I go through customs anymore, because it's the kind of job that can easily be automated with new technology. They check my eyes, and if I'm not too tired, the thing says, yes, it's you, and they let me through. These jobs involve hand-eye coordination. So this is something like laying bricks. There are machines now that can build walls of laying bricks. And the most obvious one is driving cars and driving a truck. If you think about what a driver does, other than yell insults in Italian out the window, they basically just see what's happening and they control the car. That's hand-eye coordination. So the jobs of the future are equally interesting. If your job involves a variety of different tasks and requires you to solve problems in a busy or changing environment, or if it requires a human touch, then your job is relatively safe. So the jobs may involve, for example, demonstrations of skill, such as competing in a sporting contest or hand-making some kind of craft. They might involve flexible problem solving, such as you see with nurses in hospitals or elder care, taking care of someone. That requires that kind of flexible thought. And they often require establishing trust or expressing some kind of authentic human emotion like empathy. For example, somebody who does consultative sales has to have these kinds of social skills. Those are the jobs of the future. So to try to make this a little bit clearer, Let's face it, no one wants to go to a bar after school and tell your troubles to an electronic bartender at the end of the day. That's not going to happen. What fun is it going to be to listen to a robot play Chopin on the violin? That's not what we want to use machines for. So if history is a guide, particularly considering the demographics of the workforce in the US and here in Italy and in China, there are going to be plenty of jobs, actually. The problem will be helping the displaced workers, the workers who are displaced by this new technology, to retrain them with the new skills that will be valued by the employers as the economy and the labor markets continue to evolve. Now, I have a lot of policy ideas about this, but I won't go into them during my talk. Now, another major problem is wealth inequality. It's worth noting that the new wave of technology is actually going to make us quite a bit wealthier than we are today. But whether those benefits are going to accrue to some kind of ruling elite, like you folks, or whether it's more equitably distributed across society, that's very much an open question. And again, it's another lecture on what kinds of effects this automation is likely to have on our job markets and on the distribution of resources and wealth in our society.